they just refuse to acknowledge, or they're just in denial about their addiction? Does this happen to them?
Thank you very much. It's in fact, when you go into therapeutic sessions, one of the first things we would like the clients to do is to acknowledge that this is the problem. Now, if that is not achieved, the therapy is not likely to last
work,
or to yield the needed.
Because they are just not aware. They refuse to acknowledge that it is a problem.
Some are aware, but they just wouldn't acknowledge it. Now, it happens because, you see, sometimes you can be abused to a particular behavior or even drug, and the effect is not directly on you. It actually affects others. Okay, so for example, you are used to a particular perfume, and your colleagues at work, you share proximity, so they are always having problem, with obtaining fresh air, mainly because of your perfume. You would disagree with them that you have an addiction. You understand? Because at the end, directly, you don't find it a problem, or personally you don't find it a problem, but they see it as interfering with their functioning every day around you. So where the effect of the addiction is directly felt by significant others or those who are around the sufferer, then it's likely the sufferer will deny any existence of addiction on his or her part.
Okay. What are some of the risk factors for addictions? What are some of the consequences?
Yeah. Great. In psychology, we call something learning. In fact, we believe that, or research within psychology has shown that many of the addictive behaviors are as a result of learning. People learn by observing others or by engaging the behavior with others. A few years ago, we conducted a study on why young people take to smoking cigarettes, for example, in Ghana. And we noticed that many of them grew up in environments or in homes where uncles and fathers sent them on errands to get cigarettes. And in the presence of these kids within the home environment, these significant male adults smoked. So these kids thought that smoking as an adult or a young adult, male young adult, is right. So during adolescence, they also resorted to smoking. So
maybe something like peer pressure, kind of.
That is one. Again, the home environment, like I tease out from that research, and also sometimes parenting styles.
So the way a child is brought up can also affect their addiction.
Yeah. So can you imagine that?
Give us an example.
You're just 10 years old, and your mom every day will take you to the mall and always picking up things every day, shopping with you. You grow up with that mentality that, hey, shopping is right.
It's a good thing.
Exactly.
You just go shopping every day.
So you always end up allocating greater portion of your budget to shopping when really you don't need those stuff. And this can interfere with other equally important areas of your life, and that can be addiction.
Is there a difference between addiction and obsession?
Great question. Obsession, but first let me give a scenario. Let's imagine a young man drives to this premises. Now he parks his car, comes in here after the show, he steps out and he finds that there's this guy who is, let's say, mentally deranged, standing by his car, or perhaps even touching or leaning on the car. Upon reaching there, the guy moves away. Now he looks at the guy, the owner of the car, looks at the guy, and then goes around the car, kabo, praying, apparently thinking that this guy has more or less brought bad omen to his car, and it's likely he may be engaged in an accident or something. Now he sets off. The next week he comes here again for another program. He steps out and he goes around his car 7 times, praying again. Now, he's obsessed with an idea that is directly connected to something negative about happening. Now, obsession has to do with having illogical thinking that is associated with anxiety or fear.
Okay.
Okay, so you engage in that behavior because if you don't, anxiety will take over you, and your fear of what is to happen will take over you.
So obsession is a little bit more serious than addiction.
And it's part of addiction. Sometimes it can actually lead to addiction. Now, you are thinking that if I don't use the sanitizer, I will have, infection, something like that. So every second you apply it. Now, you have this compulsive behavior of applying the sanitizer because of your obsession that you may be infected
if you don't.
You see, now over time that becomes an addictive behavior, because then every moment you have to apply it, and over time you notice that it will be interfering with your interaction and relationship with others, and sometimes your work life.
Wow. How do we quit an addiction?
Thank you very much. And I think that's another very important question. Now, first, you have to acknowledge that this is a problem. And the next thing is that it will be very important that you see a professional, for example. There are some very friendly strategies or therapeutic processes you'll be taking through, so you can break or reduce the level of addiction. And the other common thing you can do is that in everything you do, try to strike the line of moderation. Try to do things moderately. Don't go beyond your limits and all of that. So we have to keep our eyes on moderation.
I can imagine that it won't be an easy thing, because your body, or you've become so used to this particular thing that without it you just can't function. So it must be quite difficult to let go of an addiction.
It can also vary based on the individual involved. For example, somebody who has grown up, you grew up seeing and knowing your mothers and all significant female models around you shopping. So for you it's okay. In that case, if you are left alone, you just cannot overcome the addiction. You clearly will need the help,
some guidance. It's a gradual process, isn't it?
Exactly. It's not.
Maybe
it's
you
not
just start cutting down a little bit, and then
gradually. Because now, let's face it, there are some behaviors we engage in that have survival values. In other words, you cannot do away with them completely. You will definitely, will need the help of an expert, so you can maintain that level of moderation.
So there are some that you just can't do on your own. You may need professional help to let go of.
That's it.
Okay. Is there anything that we've missed?
I think that maybe something we said, but we have to keep hammering. For example, and that is the idea that whatever we do, let's try to be moderate. Lest we plunge into the domains of addiction.
So moderation is key.
Very important.
Everything.
Very important.
Just so you don't go overboard.
Yes.
It becomes an obsession or an addiction.
Sure.
Anyway, thank you so much for your time this morning. Emmanuel Niboy Kwashi is a lecturer at the Department of Psychology at the University of Ghana, Legon, and he's been here this morning talking to us about addictions.